Let us give some tzedakah, my dear friend, and the tzedakah will bring all the blessings, including the blessing of the imminent Geula. Today, the 14th day, Erev Tu B'Av, the day before the 15th day of the month of Av, where the Gemara says, Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, There's been no greater holiday for the Jewish people than the 15th day of the month of Menachem Av and the day of Yom Kippur. What did they do? On Yom Kippur we fast, but what did they do on Menachem, 15th day of the Menachem Av? B'nais Yerushalayim, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in the streets, and they would all be dressed in white, and they would share their clothing, the wealthy with the less wealthy. Everybody didn't have their own clothing, their own white dresses, and they would go out and dance in the vineyards, and they would send a message to the young man. Look at the quality, look at the virtue of the women, do not look at external experiences. Connection between Yom Kippur and Chamishas B'Av. Yom Kippur, as we know, is the day where the God had forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second set of tablets. Vayomer Hashem Salachti Kidvarecha, God has forgiven, and we start a new relationship with Hashem after the forgiveness of the breaking of the tablets, and then we have now the new tablets. Chamishas B'Av has a similarity in terms of, remember the story with the Meraglim, the explorers that Moshe Rabbeinu sent to Israel to explore how to enter the land of Israel, and they came back with a very negative, discouraging report, and in fact they discouraged all the Jewish people from entering the land of Israel, and God said, indeed, this generation will stay here in the desert. And the next 40 years, every year, those who were the age of 60, on the day of Tisha B'Av, they will lie down in the grave and the morning not waking up. Approximately 15,000 is the number that our sages tell us. Now was the 40th year, the last batch, the last group of people who are not supposed to wake up. Tisha B'Av, the next day they woke up. So they figured they made a mistake in the date. And this was going on for a few days till it came the 15th day of the month of Av, where the moon is in its fullest. They realized, no mistake in the date, God has forgiven. So there's a forgiveness of the Chet HaMeraglim. So we are told, why is it so special? Because it is the moon in its fullest. But the moon is in its fullest every month, not just in the month of Av. Rabbi explains, because we're not talking about any month. We're talking about the 15th day coming after Tisha B'Av, after the 9 days, after the 3 weeks where we commemorate the destruction of the temple, because of the lack of Jewish unity, because of the lack of gratuitous love, unfortunately, was Sinat Chinam. So now when it comes the 15th day of the month of Av, where we see the moon shining in its fullest, with the reflecting the light of the other dimensions, the other aspects of what happened on the 15th day of Av, which all of them represent Jewish unity, and therefore it's a great holiday. So what happened on this day? So as we just mentioned before, that was the day that was clearly indicated that God forgave on the sin of the Meraglim, the explorers. But later on there's a number of stories that happened. At one point, the tribe of Binyamin behaved cruelly against an individual. And at that time, the entire Jewish community decided to ostracize them and forbid anybody to marry with a Shevet Binyamin. Now this caused a frightening situation that the Shevet Binyamin might, God forbid, completely eradicated. So the following generation, they took away that ban, and that was on the day of the 15th day of Av, where we were once again allowed to intermarry with the Shevet Binyamin. Another thing which happened after the destruction of the temple, those who rebelled, Bar Kokhba, in the city of Beitar, they were not allowed to be buried. 15 years they were lying on the streets, refusing to be allowed to be buried. And then that permission was given. Miracle happened that the bodies didn't decompose. And this also happened on the 15th day of Av, a great simcha that finally those people were able to be buried. And in fact, we added another blessing in Birkat HaMazon HaTov HaMeitiv to remember that. Further thing, when King Yerovam split the Jewish people, the kingdom of Yehuda, the kingdom of Israel, and he didn't allow the kingdom of Israel to go up to Jerusalem for the high holidays, I should say, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Then later on, came Moshe ben Ella, break these barriers and allowed everybody to go up. So this represents a time of unification, of unity. That's the greatest holiday. There is no greater holiday for Jewish people than when we are unified. So Chamisha Asar B'Av, the 15th day of the month of Av, represents the Yantav of Jewish holiday. Today, modern, they made it the holiday of love. Indeed, what kind of love? We're talking love amongst the Jewish people as a whole. And this is the greatest holiday. Because when there is unity amongst the Jewish people, there is unity with God. And when there is unity with God and the Jewish people, this brings the final unity, the Beis HaMikdash with Mashiach now.